and welcome to Change Happens, a weekly gathering of things that I found entertaining, informative, or thoughtful as I made my way through the digital cave that is the interweb.
Alright, let's do this thing. Change Happens, Volume 106. Have a great day, find your way. December 8th, 2024, from the walls of the digital cave. Hi. Do you remember when you believed for fun? We used to gather in front of the hearth. You had to be careful, it could chip a tooth. To yell our wishes up the chimney to Santa. We were lucky, he seemed to hear some of what we said, and we knew that not everyone had a hearth nor a chimney. We continued to beg for forgiveness and reward long after the smallest of us knew that no one could squeeze past the flu, because it was so wonderful to believe together. As always, Change Happen is brought to you in part by Hyperventilating the Podcast. A father and a daughter discuss matters. Hyperventilating the Podcast, entertaining, thoughtful, and informative. Join us every Wednesday. First up, against long odds. Headline, How Did Life on Earth Begin? From the article. Earth formed roughly 4.6 billion years ago, and for several 100 million years the planet's surface was almost certainly too hot and heavily bombarded by comets and asteroids to be hospitable to any kind of life form. About 1 billion years later, life not only existed, but was also leaving evidence of its presence in the form of fossilized microbial mats. So what happened in the interim? How did life spring from non-life over the course of 500 million years or so? Endlessly considered for as long as consideration has been a thing, how did life on Earth begin? This article gives 3 popular theories how we, and apparently only we, came to be. Sparked by lightning, maybe brought to Earth from outer space, hidden in comets and meteorites, or hiding in the Earth's oceans. It makes me wonder, how many times did life begin and end before it took root? Considering how outrageously unlikely it is that life as we know it exists, you would think that it was more than once. Driving is complicated. Headline, Why are driverless cars still hitting things? From the article. If you've ever seen a driverless vehicle with an odd-looking spinning top adorning its roof, those are LiDAR, or light detection and ranging sensors. LiDAR systems send out millions of laser pulses in all directions around the vehicle and then measure how quickly those lasers bounce back to the vehicle, and then use that information to create an impressively accurate 3D map of the car's surroundings. This digital image of light pulses can detect the presence of pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicles. It can also detect variations in topography, which could be useful for the car navigating around potholes or other hazards. All of this happens nearly instantaneously. This is a look at where driverless cars are right now in terms of technology and safety, the different methods being used to ascertain what's around the car. It gives some insight into how they work and how they can be so spookily driverless. It appears that, regardless of anyone's feelings one way or the other about cars without human piloting, robot-driven cars are here to stay. No mind's eye. Headline, I can't picture things in my mind. I didn't realize that was unusual. From the article. Aphantasia is relatively new to being named. In the late 19th century, scientists, notably Francis Galton, wrote that some people were better able to picture objects in their mind than others. But it wasn't until 2003 that the University of Exeter's Adam Zeman published the first case report on aphantasia after meeting a 65-year-old who lost the ability to mentally visualize familiar people and places after surgery. In this story, a woman with aphantasia explains how she discovered that she had it and how it affects her. Very interesting article, written from the perspective of a person who can't visualize images in their head. If you ask her to close her eyes and picture her favorite childhood stuffy, she can't. She doesn't see any images. If I need to describe my childhood dog, I go to an image in my head. The woman in the article would consult a list. Interesting to imagine not being able to imagine an image. Coronation of Napoleon, December 2nd, 1804. It's better to be emperor. Down the Wiki Rabbit Hole. Napoleon I and his wife Josephine were crowned Emperor and Empress of the French on Sunday, December 2nd, 1804, or the year 13 according to the French Republican calendar commonly used at the time in France, at Notre Dame in Paris. It marked the instantiation of the modern empire and was a transparently masterminded piece of modern propaganda. Napoleon wanted to establish the legitimacy of his imperial reign with its new dynasty and nobility. To this end, he designed a new coronation ceremony unlike that for the kings of France, which had emphasized the king's consecration and anointment and was conferred by the Archbishop of Reims in Reims Cathedral. Napoleon's was a sacred ceremony held in the great Cathedral of Notre Dame in the presence of Pope Pius VII. No fear of closed spaces. Headline: The Australian town where people live underground. From the article. Furthermore, the sandstone is structurally sound without supports, so it's possible to make literally cavernous rooms with high ceilings, in any shape you like, with no additional materials. In fact, tunneling in Coober Pedy is so straightforward, many locals live in elaborate luxury dwellings with underground swimming pools, games rooms, expansive bathrooms, and high-spec living rooms. One local has previously described his subterranean home as like a castle with 50,000 tumble bricks and arched doorways to every room. This story looks at an Australian town called Coober Pedy. It's an open mining town with a population of about 2,500 where people live underground. With more places in the world experiencing increased temperatures, there's something to be said for moving underground. In the case of Coober Pedy, temperatures can get up to 52 degrees Celsius or 126 degrees Fahrenheit. That's basically unlivable above ground. The article looks at different places that, at various times, have also found people living underground. Seems like a vitamin D deficiency going somewhere to happen. Not so unrelated. Headline: Neanderthals more knowable now than ever. From the article. Though Neanderthals may have looked slightly odd to Homo sapiens, studies of ancient DNA show they did interbreed with our species. To Viola, that has important implications. Homo sapiens clearly recognized Neanderthals as mating partners, which suggests they thought of them as humans. Maybe the weird guys living beneath the mountains, but still fellow humans, he says. More or less, whenever both species extensively co-occurred, there has been genetic exchange. An excellent article examining all the new understandings we have of Neanderthals. I find it amazing to consider that there was a variation of human that wasn't us, but was not far from us. Were they not human? And if not human, then what did Neanderthals represent? We interbred, that can't be dismissed. Homo sapiens seemed to feel they were part of the club. There are levels in the survival game. Headline: Will cockroaches outlive humans? From the article. Cockroaches as a group are one of the most, if not the most, varied of all insect groups in terms of their reproductive biology. A few species are parthenogenic, meaning that they reproduce asexually. Others produce egg sacs, and others have abandoned egg cases in favor of nurturing eggs in their brood pouch. Females of certain species literally take their offspring under their wing. Their forewing to be exact. With these diverse means of reproduction at their disposal, the cockroach is well equipped to rebound after a cataclysmic event. If the question is, will cockroaches outlast us, the answer is yes. Yes, they will. If you're disgusted by them, definitely skip this article. But if you're interested in how they can manage to set the standards for species survival, this is the place to find out. It's interesting and a bit disgusting. Very cockroachy. As scarce as truth is, the supply has always been in excess of the demand. Josh Billings, a peer of Mark Twain. Well, thank you for joining me this fine day, and I very much look forward to next week.
When we meet again inside the spectacular human repository of everything and nothing, it's your life, you understand.